let's say that Drew, you want to sell to an organization. You want to sell your service, your tool as a service to, let's say, an organization with 30 salespeople. What we know is that you're always going to go through approximately the same process. You got to find the initiator. The initiator introduces you to the champion. The champion then the champion often is the person that is eager and motivated, sees the value of it, but then they allocate it to the owner of the project, the head of sales or the head of marketing. Then, as they want to push it through, they realize there's a gatekeeper, security, purchasing, whatever. And for that, you need an influencer to deblock the gatekeeper. And then there's often an executive buying committee, 3 or 4 people that are put together and say like thumbs up to buy something for in the range of $20, $30, $40,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we're going through a few processes like that on our own, and I can identify the people. So
right. And so what you see down here is we depict, like there's a particular roadblock, the thing that we do, we say emotional impact, and when we put them all together, we got what we call a blueprint.
Yeah.
Now, in this, if you want to develop a lead in a pipeline, which one is the most critical role that you want to get? Or you have nothing yet, you need to get 20 opportunities on your forecast. Which role, what are you looking for? Where's the beginning? Where does this all begin with?
You mean the role that we're looking at?
In this role, in this chart, which role does it all start with?
It depends which use case we're talking about, but we can talk about sales enablement right now. So initiator might be an individual sales rep.
See, so you're looking for the initiator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key. So now we're looking for the initiator. I want to know what the initiator are. Now, how can I find initiators inside companies? And this is where the magic starts. Because if I tell to you initiator, can you tell me about DISC? Is there something involved with the role of initiator?
Well, we actually have a role called initiator, which usually it would happen to fit pretty well with this because the initiator is high I, high D. And that's going to be someone who is pretty adventurous, high risk tolerance, high level thinker, usually not going to get bogged down in the details or too overly concerned with things like stability or predictability or security right away.
I love you. I love the fact that you know all that stuff makes me feel like, okay, we're doing good. Because I just assumed that somebody who built this product would know that, but I do not know all that.
Yeah, it's right. It's all in there in this model. It's amazing. And we didn't invent that. It's about 100 years old, but it's fascinating how well it works.
But what you'll see is that you got the initiator, right? And you got that from what you call the DISC profile. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leverage that. And I'm going to go like, hey, if that is the initiator, and I know that Dominic is the initiator, and that is in your DISC profile, I wonder if this role, if any of these others map to the other DISC profiles.
You know what? So we could figure that out later in a process if there's if there's some kind of data to use. I can make best guesses, and based on what I see, how people use the product. So those best guesses would be based on what I've seen in our own customers and those customer life cycles, and then also what our customers tell us, and then probably just general assumptions. So I can take a crack at it.
Do you see me glowing already?
Yeah, I do. I see that.
We did this.
Oh yeah, okay. That would have been similar to what I would have guessed.
And so we found this out. And you know what you are, right? What are you in your own profile?
An influencer.
An influencer. And so what you see there, you're a C. If I call were you a C? I think.
No, I'm ID. I'm an ID.
ID, okay. Then where you fit, you're an influencer. And so what you'll see is that what we nowadays know is this maps. Now, look, what is science? Science is if I can put mathematical formulas to it, that's one form of science. You know what also another form of science is? Me testing it out 1,000 times and coming to the conclusion that this is for 950 times, this is approximately accurate.
Okay. Because
that is just a form of testing. So currently, obviously, we would love to have you engaged and make this even more scientific based on roles, models, profiles, and whatnot. But this is where we're at right now. And this allows me to start mapping that sales process. Go ahead.
Are you basing these roles off of your clients? So your typical user is a motivator, because I can imagine in different industries, different products, these shift around the map a lot. If you're selling an IT, you know, if you're selling an IT security product, the user is probably down there as like a CS. But if you're selling, you know, a creative design tool, your typical user is probably up there in an I motivator.
Okay, I got to pull Michael J. Fox in this.
Okay.
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. But your kids are gonna love it.
Okay, this is what's gonna happen. You nailed it in a second, right? We're not ready for that yet, but I'll plug in because security, another one that works really different is finance and medtech. These are very, you know, like you'll see that it's like the thing is shifting. Your true north is shifting to a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left. IT will be more gravitating towards captain, driver, questioner, and so on. So you'll see that, yeah. If you could build that for us into the near future, that would be great. For now, this is as much I think we as humans can feel comfortable with, because if it gets even closer to the truth, then it would feel very uncomfortable because you feel like we're just part of the matrix and we're all just fulfilling the role that we were here to do. But you'll see what I now can do is I can now use Crystal and I can go into a company such as Winning by Design and I ask, for example, a sales development rep, find the 3 people at most senior level who are the initiator, or find the managers of groups or the heads of sales who are recognized as, because I want to know what a decider is. I want captains and drivers that are currently in the sales or sales ops team, and they can go look for them and give me the most likely names for it.
You know, you can also do now, you can compare them. So for example, one common issue you're going to run into is that if you are going into a group of sales leaders, like let's say your product is selling to sales orgs, you're going to get an overall in the population of sales leaders, it's going to shade D. That's just going to be natural. So you might get everybody looking like a decider. But now there's these playbooks in Crystal where you can compare all of those leaders to each other as opposed to the general population. So you know, among this group of deciders or Ds, who is the most extreme in that direction, and who in that group of deciders actually behaves like more of a gatekeeper because they're more closer to the Cs. So there's a lot of nuance to that.
Now this is where, and you touch on the word playbook, this is where I want to take you to what we are seeing, what we can do next with that. This is where I'm currently, like working off somewhere where I am running into now. What I want to show you in this picture is the following. What you see here at the top is what is the most critical part of the consultative sale. Now, of the provocative sale. Provocative selling means I'm going to try to get to a group of executives selling a $50,000 solution, and I want a few of the stakeholders in it. I want to meet with them and want to get to the conclusion whether this even makes sense that we do this project. By doing that, I'm getting higher engagement earlier on, and this notion down here of proposing and trading is now perceived as downhill selling. Whereas you see with consultative, I'm still putting effort in to get further upstream. Okay? Now I want to get that workshop. In that workshop, I want to get the right people. That is where I'm going to use playbooks. And so what I found, if I run a playbook and I'm going to say, hey, create a new playbook, what I want to make sure is, do I have the absolute right people in the group? And so what I've done down here is I'm going to go to create a playbook, select profiles. I'm going to say, like I'm just picking the 4 of us, and I'm going to go like, hey, brainstorm meeting and stakeholder meeting are very much alike. Like obviously in the future, if that could, like if we could say sales and then suddenly those things would update.
Build your own too. Make a stakeholder meeting. You can build your own too, stakeholder meeting thing.
That's what we need to be doing. And there we go. And so now what I'm doing is I'm going, earlier I wanted to test it out, so I've created already, so I'm going to create it. What I now have, what is extremely valuable to me, I'm going to go back. I am in the workshop with a bunch of stakeholders. I've now learned before what the decision process is. I know who's the champion, the decider. I come out of that. Hey, I know who's involved. I'm going to get those people in the meeting. Later on, we can show you we can use your tool for that. I'm going to go into that workshop. And in that workshop, I'm going to get a playbook that tells me how we are all mapped. And obviously we are all winning by design salespeople, because I didn't want to add some random persons. You see, we're all going to be alike. And what you see here is this, to me, this playbook that you built here is phenomenal. Tell me a little bit, why did you build this playbook and what are you doing here?
So playbooks in general, we built because every company has a slightly different process and different methods, and Crystal's used for lots of things. So not even just sales, leadership training, coaching, hiring, recruiting. So playbooks are this really flexible way to get practical advice for any business situation with any combination of people. So that's the core of it. And we built these templates so that you have like a one-click or almost one-click way to get a printable, shareable, downloadable page going into a meeting, or when you're approaching an account, or whenever whenever you're entering into this situation. So that's the why behind playbooks. It's saying you've got these accurate personality profiles with Crystal. How do you put these together and use them in your daily process, and then improve your conversations? Kind of like you're describing in that whole along the line. So
now, where you go further, what is so meaningful to me, at Winning by Design in sales, you can often talk about high level, but most sales methodologies being applied and deployed primarily are focused at the communication between the sales manager and the salesperson. If you look at why, nobody will say things like that, or a medic, nobody will talk to a customer in medic terms, right? It's a communication, and it's a system that sets up more for internal. But what you did here, you went external, right? You gave me actually something I got to do with the customer. You gave me what to say, what sentences. We call these blueprint sentences.
Okay.
Now, what you see down here, say this, what are you aiming to accomplish? They may seem almost like, well, Jocko, we just did that. Drew, that is so important for me, because I may not use that exact same sentence, or I may, but it tells me what the mindset is. A sentence like this is more meaningful to me than a full-on explanation on what I should be saying. It just hints me to go in the right direction approximately. And so if we are training people, for example, this is what they're looking for. And these questions and the way you worded it, I find in the beginning when I saw this, I thought you were BSing me with the tool, because I thought that you were going to have these candidates, the same 20 sentences were used everywhere. But there are some really gnarly sentences in there. Like, that's not a common sentence. like that is really different from whatever else I'm seeing. And so I found out, how did you, like, what was, when you did that, what were you thinking about those sentences?
It's a lot of ways our content's developed. So in the back end of Crystal, there is, I'll preface this. If you scroll up to the map, so the circle, the disk map.
Yep.
If you scroll up to that, everything within Crystal and the sentences is driven by the degrees on that map. So how far around it you are, and the intensity. So how far away you are from the center. So if you're like way up at the top, like it looks like, I think that's Dan up there. Whenever we're displaying a sentence, like a piece of content that's giving feedback to Dan, or how you should approach Dan in a negotiation, or all of these things, we've got tons and tons of options of how you should approach that are literally all over that map. So if you were to visualize each of those sentences for like how to give feedback, for example, you'd see little dots all over the map. And what we're doing is we're finding the closest one to Dan. So he's going to get a different sentence than somebody who's the same type, but a lot closer to the center. And that's important, because when you have two people in a meeting who might both be drivers, but one's less intense than the other, it's very important to know that this driver is going to have a more extreme approach and this one's going to have a more moderate approach. So everything in Crystal is driven by those dots. And then even when we're talking about relationships between people, because you can get deeper into relationship insights, and those are more like lines between two people. If you know you've got a D and then they approach an I in this way, we've got, if you were to visualize those, it's like, what are the closest dots and the lines that connect them? So there's a lot of math happening in the back to determine which sentences are surfaced. But in general, the reason it feels magic is because it's aligning very close to like, it's like bell curves. So I can get into the statistics of it, but it's very close to what they would actually get in an assessment, so.
I love the fact that you use a scientific approach to this and math in order to calculate this and lines. And I can visualize that there's a mathematical model behind this that drives you. And I want to make sure that you keep that to yourself. I want to make sure that you keep investing in developing that and making it better. For me, if this is where we start today, then this is already an incredible spot to help. And I have seen this not only help new people, this will help people who are very experienced to tune it. And very new people it will help. We call these things turn-by-turn directions because what we feel like it is of help. Why? Because you doing this, and you said this at the beginning, you're not here to get to know that person in full detail to help them solve the problem. You're here to solve the problem. In order to help them solve their problem, you got to do some of this. And you just made this faster for me. So I can help them quicker.
Right.
Now,
it's taking a lot of that initial ambiguity out of it and speeding up the process of getting to know the client.
Exactly right. And for me, like we approach sales as an everlasting way of looking at like helping. I feel we are doctors. I feel like we're here to help people be successful and not here to sell them something that they're going to turn in later on and they're going to use it in SaaS contracts. That doesn't even matter. It only makes a loss. But what we are in the world right now, Drew, where your tool for me comes in, is we're in a world where I don't have the time to fly to you, take 2 weeks to book, walk around in your hallways, get to know your organization, take time over a 3 to 6 months period to get to know everybody so that I don't upset them with the recommendations I'm making, only to solve a problem that I could have solved in 2 weeks for you and learn how to communicate with you with the tool that you've provided to us. That is what I do. Now, for some people, this may be magic, or they may feel like, ouch, this is too close to who I am. How would you look upon that?
There's always going to be a percentage of people who are freaked out by the accuracy early on. And when people understand what Crystal is, that we're not some big shadowy database in the background, we're just analyzing data that's on the front end that you put out there. It's public and it's available on like a LinkedIn profile or resume. When people realize what it is, it gets a lot less creepy. But when people start using it and they learn, oh wow, this is actually opening up conversations that I have not had in a long time that I should have had, that's when you start really getting like the human benefit of it. And it's really funny because I demo the product all the time. It's like my favorite party trick. And I'll be talking to, like a husband and wife or two people who've worked together forever. And they're sitting there looking at their profiles and going over it. And when you talk about personality is not a prescription for everything. And anybody who goes around saying, just because you're this type, that means I have this rule about you, that's wrong. But it opens up, it's like a door to open up the meaningful stuff. And then whatever we can do to accelerate that process is where the value is added. Because if your junior rep can now communicate like a senior rep, because all of the gut instinct of a senior rep, if you can bring some of that into just the data that you're presenting, it helps build confidence, helps build connection, all those kind of like intangibles in the sales conversation.
I want you to know what we were having in mind for this. We have a lot of young people who may want to go to university or contemplating sales and think you have a university degree for that, which I recommend everybody to get a degree, right? Don't get me wrong. But with tools like this, we can make sales accessible to a far larger audience that can help themselves make money, earn money the right way by learning people the right way, wherever they are in the world, whether they're in the middle of America or somewhere in Europe. We making sales accessible. And what we're doing this with, in my view, is a scientific approach, is models that are repeatable, that can be improved over time, that we can tune things on. No longer am I dependent on an individual person who has 20 years of experience, which is great, right? But I also have to pay that person $450,000 to $500,000 for that experience. And I go like, but if I'm selling a service that is $1,000 a month, that does, I cannot afford that. Mm-hmm. These tools suddenly make this knowledge way more available to everyone. And for those people who already want to secure that position, I'm certain that there's lots of other value that they offer that they can still, like make sure that they earn that level of mm-hmm. income. But for us, this makes me enthusiastic about what sales is. This makes me enthusiastic about working with other human beings. And, you know, like I wanted to, you know, thank you for building this product. I want you to thank you that I can play around with it and enjoy it.